Okay, it looks like we are live on YouTube and now I think on Instagram as well. So, hello everyone. If you are new here to Sleep and Wellness Coach, I am Allison Egidi. I'm a pediatric sleep coach. I'm located in the Charlottesville, Virginia area. And I work with kids 0 to 17. I founded Sleep and Wellness Coach back in 2016. So in June, it will be 10 years. And every single month since creating Sleep and Wellness Coach, I have offered a free monthly Q&A. And it's changed forms. Back before live was not a thing, we did it through Facebook, and now we do it each month live on Instagram and more recently on YouTube Live. So the way it works is you can submit a question in advance through a post that went up on Instagram yesterday, so the day before the nap chat or sleep Q&A, and then also through the event on YouTube. So I will start with pre-submitted questions, and then I'm also happy to take any live questions that come in during the session. So if you're joining me and you did not get to submit a question beforehand about your child's sleep, and you have a question about your child's sleep, you can put it in the comments of this video. And as soon as I get through the pre-submitted questions, I'm happy to answer them. Before I dive in, I'm going to fill you guys in on something very exciting that is coming up that I haven't filled anyone in on yet. So you all will be the first to hear about it. And that is a series of 5 free educational classes that I am teaching the week of March 8th. So the week of March 8th is National Sleep Awareness Week. And I thought it was worth recognizing and celebrating this week because I love the fact that there is a week where they are trying to bring more attention to the importance of sleep. So I am offering 5 free classes the week of March 8th, one on newborn sleep, one on infant sleep, one on toddler sleep, one on sleep for elementary age children, and one on tween and teen sleep. They are going to be completely free. There is no catch. There is no sales pitch at the end. It is just 1 hour, well, about 45 minutes for each of those classes of me educating you on sleep for that age group, and then I'll have a Q&A. There will also be no replay, so you'll really want to mark your calendar. The classes will take place that Tuesday through Friday. So more to come on that this coming week. We're just wrapping up getting the registration page all put together so you can go to one page and register for any of the classes you want. So that will be coming this week. So if that's of interest to you, just make sure you're keeping an eye out for those free classes so you don't miss out to join me for those. Okay, let me start with these pre-submitted questions. And these came in on Instagram. And of course, I have to mention the handle names, which are always a little tricky sometimes. Okay. Mal Hudson McInnes said 7 months old, was previously sleeping through the night 7 to 7. Then at 5-ish months, started waking up once per night to drink a full bottle. And that has been going on now for 2 months. We changed her feeds, introduced solids, capped naps, and dropped to 2 naps. She naps 9:30 to 11 and 2 to 4. So about 3.5 hours of day sleep. Bed 7 to 7 with 1 wake up around 2 a.m. drinking a full bottle. She gets 5 6 to 8 ounce bottles throughout the day after each nap and 1 extra at 9 a.m. before her first nap and before bed. How do I fix this night wake up? First of all, you did a very good job giving me good detail, like in a concise way. So I don't dislike the schedule you're on. I typically, just for anyone listening, like to see kids transition down to 2 naps in that 7 to 8 month window. Most often, it is 7.5 to 8 months. But looking at how your day sleep is going, I'm not inclined to think that that is your problem. So, at this age group, I like to see 3 to 4 hours of total day sleep, and you're getting 3.5, and you have lovely length naps, like an hour and a half first nap, fantastic. A 2-hour second nap, also great. Up by 4, also what I recommend. So you have so many pieces of your daughter's sleep puzzle put together, which is fantastic. And what likely happened at the 5-ish months that suddenly triggered that wake up is either she did have a growth spurt, or her schedule was a little off, and by off, I mean not quite in alignment with her optimal sleep rhythm, and it created some sort of wake up. I'm trying to see if you said what time it's happening. Around 2 a.m. So it created a wake up, and then now she's fallen into this rhythm. And so I don't think your schedule is broken. I think it's a rhythm issue. So if you eat, I'm going to try to give an example to help you understand where I'm going with this. If you eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the same time every day, around that time, you will get hunger cues. And I really start to see this develop sometimes as it relates to night wakings and feedings after about the 6-month mark. If feedings aren't naturally dropped, sometimes they can become very rhythmic. So it's very possible that no matter what that trigger was at 5 months that created this new wake up, now her body's in a rhythm of eating around 2 a.m. And so she wakes up and she probably does have some hunger cues, and she then wants to eat. That is different than, quote, needing a night feeding. You already know she was capable, she was sleeping through before, unless your pediatrician has told you something different, or there's some concern about her growth and development. Given your daytime feeding schedule, she's getting plenty to eat. And I think what you need to do is just drop that feeding. And because of the rhythm piece that I was just mentioning and the way hunger cues work with a rhythm, I would not slowly drop the ounces. If you slowly drop the ounces, she's still going to get the hunger cues. Whether you're giving her a snack or a full meal, if she's still getting food at that time, then she's going to continue to get the hunger cues. So you have a good daytime feeding schedule, you have a good sleep schedule. We need to break the rhythm. So I would drop that feeding cold turkey. And this is where I would implement some sort of sleep training method. I can't go into all of those here on this. That would take up the whole Q&A. But whatever sleep training method you wanted to implement, you would do it at that waking, at any and all wakings. And then I would also say, so the body will reacclimate within 2 to 3 days once you drop the feeding. So those hunger cues, they may be there the first 2 or 3 days, and then she will adjust to not having a feeding there. Similarly, if you've ever tried fasting, it takes a few days for your body to acclimate to your fasting schedule, and then you kind of stop getting the hunger cues for breakfast or whatever it may be. So do that. And then know part of the reason the sleep training method becomes important is it's normal for a baby or a toddler or for you or me to have some sort of natural nighttime disruptor. People are not typically going to sleep like they're in a coma for their full, in this example, 12 hours of sleep. So it would be normal for her to have some sort of wake up between 2 and 4 in the morning. And we just want her to realize that she could go back to sleep and she doesn't need to go back to sleep in a milk coma. So hopefully that helps a little bit. But I think you've done a great job with your schedule. Okay. Emmy Bims is the handle for the next question. Said, very recently turned 3-year-old boy that dropped his nap about 2 months ago. He is asleep by 7:30, earlier if not a school day, and wakes between 6:30 and 7. He recently has started waking during the night and needing support for 1 to 2 hours. Oh, brutal. Typically, we snuggle for a few minutes, and then he goes back to his crib, and I lay next to it holding his hand. He is very sad if I leave before he is asleep again, though he can fall asleep independently otherwise. He has voiced the next day when asked that he woke because of a storm, though no storm was happening, or because he was missing mommy. He has also started to voice worries about the dark. I suspect it is a combination of dream becoming more vivid and fears of the dark arising. I always try to lean into the dark becoming cozy and good for sleep. From your great advice, I was going to give that advice, but glad you're already on it. But I'm unsure of how to handle these new fears. We have his hatch on a low setting at night so that it isn't completely dark in his room, but recently has asked for more light, which I am trying not to do. Thanks, Allison. Okay. Sounds like you're already in the loop on my feelings about the dark and being positive about it. So just for everyone else listening, quick recap that a fear of the dark is not something that develops naturally or kids are born with. It is a seed that gets planted, and it typically comes from a book, a movie, a show, some child at daycare or school who gives the idea of being afraid of the dark. And then our kids are like, oh, wow, maybe I should be afraid of the dark. So one way to do that is when they bring it up to say, oh my gosh, we love the dark in this house. Mom and dad sleep in the dark. You've always slept in the dark. We get the best sleep in the dark. It helps our bodies sleep. So you just kind of stick to that message. Your narrative around the dark is that you love the dark. Ideally, we have no nightlight in the room because that can sometimes confuse the message because it's like, well, if we love the dark so much, why do I have this nightlight? But in this example, for the sake of time, if you already have the nightlight and I think you said you're using the hatch, I would try to do it on red and keep to a dim setting. Try not to give in to giving more and more light in that regard. My first thought to provide, I think he's getting overtired. So long story short, I think he's getting some anxiety from being overtired, from dropping his nap and either not quite being ready to be without his nap or not adding quite enough extra night sleep after dropping his nap. So it's very common that when a child drops the nap, even if they're ready, they then need a little bit more night sleep. And because he's getting overtired, it's fueling his anxiety. And this is true for all of us, even if you're not someone really prone to anxiety, but especially if you are, you can relate to this. If you're overtired, you are more likely to worry and be anxious. So now he's kind of on that overtired hamster wheel. And so what I would suggest, the first thing I would do is try lights out at 6:30 for a few nights just to see if you can get him some natural relief of being able to fall asleep, not being as overtired, which would mean he'd fall asleep into a higher quality sleep, which would mean hopefully he sleeps more soundly and is able to consolidate his sleep. And then during the night, this is a little bit bigger issue than we can tackle, which is why I wanted to see if even just an early bedtime would give you a little bit more natural relief. But you need to come up with some sort of plan of how you're going to handle the middle of the night waking. So we don't have this crutch of him wanting to snuggle and then you sitting by him for 1 to 2 hours. Because I'll tell you what, part of the reason he's staying up for 1 to 2 hours is because his little 3-year-old brain is like, oh my gosh, I don't want to fall asleep because if I fall asleep, then she's going to leave and not sit here and hold my hand. So he's actively resisting falling asleep because he doesn't want you to leave the room. So be thoughtful about what you want to do when he has a waking, which is kind of deciding on a method or an approach to that. And then talking to him about what you expect for him during the night, which ideally is for him to sleep all night in his room until his light turns green and not wake any sleeping people. And while you're helping him, remember that he is a sleep champion and he has been a great sleeper for a long time. If he does wake up, here's what you're going to do to help him. And so that's when you're like explaining your approach to him. This is an example, if a great example of where a consultation would be helpful to really talk through different approaches for that. But my hope would be an earlier bedtime might provide you some natural relief. And then missing his mommy. Stick with not giving the nightlight. Oh, and if he is in fact having dreams, which he certainly is an age where he could be having more vivid dreams, this is also another cue that an earlier bedtime can be helpful. Dreams can be triggered by a lot of things they watch, anxiety, all those things can trigger it, and being overtired. The best way to help kids not have bad dreams is, one, to remove the trigger if there's a clear trigger, although his doesn't sound like it's some clear show trigger we need to remove. And then two, help them get more sleep. So that means early bedtime and then having a plan so he's not up 1 to 2 hours during the night and rebuilding his confidence that he could go back to sleep. So hopefully that helps. Okay. Foundations Pediatric. Hey, girl. You said, hi, I'm looking for some guidance with my almost 2.5-year-old daughter. She has historically been a great sleeper. She's always been a bit of a mama's girl, but bedtime used to be very smooth. And we do our routine, lay her down, and she would settle independently without much protest. Over the past 2 months, bedtime has become really drawn out. During the routine, she now asks for extra things, an extra book, more lotion, saying goodnight to Big Brother again, and will add new requests at random. Once we finally leave the room, she screams every single time. Typically, we go back in briefly, and then she's ready to lay down and fall asleep. Sometimes she asks for something specific, a drink of water, an extra stuffed animal, and sometimes she doesn't need anything at all. It almost feels like she just needs us to come back once before she can settle and sleep throughout the night. Bedtime is around 6:30 p.m. with a consistent 6:30 wake up. She naps about 1 hour on weekdays at school and an hour and a half to 2 on the weekends. Recently, she has occasionally started skipping her nap at home and staying awake during nap time. That makes me a little nervous. I'd really love to help her get back to independently laying down and settling like she used to. She also still uses the pacifier at bedtime only, and I don't want to try and wean her off of that while she's still struggling to go to sleep. Good call. Is this likely developmental separation related, a nap transition, something we're unintentionally reinforcing by always going back in? How would you approach this? Okay. First of all, do not remove her nap. This has been my theme of all my morning consultations where people are like, my friends are telling me to drop the nap. Do not drop your 2.5-year-old's nap. Keep the nap. So this is kind of a behavior issue that can move into separation anxiety or general anxiety, because sometimes when we start to provide the extras and the consistency of the routine changes because of that, like maybe before 2 months ago when things were good, you just probably did the same things. And then, she went to sleep. And then for whatever reason, on one night, she asked for something extra and you did it because you're human and it probably seemed like such a small request. And then it was like pulling a thread. And as the extras started to add up and you were giving different things, so she got more and more creative, there starts to be this sense of being out of control. So it appears she's wanting control and she's getting it when you're doing the things. I always say like she's taken over as the team captain. But in reality, although she could never vocalize this to you, there's a sense of being out of control. She no longer knows what to expect at bedtime. And bedtime is typically the time of day where we're the most tired and the most likely to have anxiety or separation anxiety because you're the most tired. And now there's this unknown. Like, what can she expect from you all? So what I would, and I like your schedule. I wouldn't even cut back on any of her napping. I agree with you on not removing the pacifier until everything is sorted out. I have a whole podcast episode on dropping the pacifier when they turn 3, if you want to listen to that. And so what I would suggest, the short version of this, and I have a 1-hour workshop that really dives into this more if you wanted more specific details. It's a $25 or $27 1-hour workshop called How to Quickly Recover from a Sleep Regression, and it's for kind of the 15 to 30-month-old age group. But what you want to do is decide on what her routine is, probably what it was 3 months ago, and then be very clear with her and say, okay, starting tonight, this is what we're going to do at bedtime. We're going to, and I'm making this up, we're going to take a bath, put on your jammies and your sleep sack. We're going to read 2 books. I'm going to sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And then I'm going to put you in your crib and you are going to get so much great sleep all the way until your light turns green. And tonight we're not going to, and then I would just think about what she's talked about in, like, let's say like the last 5 days. We don't need to go too far back. And we're not going to have extra water, say goodnight to your brother again, read more books, any of those things that she's done in the last 5 nights, because it's going to be time to sleep. And after I put you in your bed, if you want to scream and cry for mommy and daddy, that's okay, but we're not going to come back in because it's time for you to be sleeping. And so that's how you break it. Because right now, this is her new routine, including that final piece where she's like, oh, here's how it goes. They put me in, I scream for them, they come back in, they reset me, and then I go to bed. It's not even like a negative or positive for her so much. It's just like the routine now. So I would just communicate that that's not the routine anymore and then power through. My guess is if that's the only piece that's broken, this can be fixed in like 3 nights of consistency. So you might get a big reaction because she's 2.5. And when you take back that team captain role, that might be met with a big reaction. But then it's going to be fixed. You're going to have your great sleeper back. So that's like the short, quick version of what I would suggest. So communicate clearly what's going to happen. So then when you're reading the books, you read your 2 books and she says, I want another book. You'll say, no, remember we read 2 books at bedtime, and then keep moving, even if she throws a fit. Really an important thing with this age group is that we get very comfortable with their big feelings, but we stick to the plan of what we told them, because that's what actually reduces anxiety and builds this trust, and that they can trust us to do what we said we're going to do. So hopefully that helps you get your great sleeper back. Okay. I have just one more pre-submitted question. And then if anyone wants to put a live question in the comments, I'm happy to switch over and take any live questions as well. So if you didn't get to submit a question in advance, you can put it in the comments and I'll answer it after I take this last pre-submitted question. Okay. Kate798 said, our 9-month-old is struggling a bit with inconsistent naps. He just dropped the 3rd nap 2 to 3 weeks ago. His naps are now at 9 a.m. and 12:45. It's not uncommon for one or both of these naps to only be 45 minutes long. Should we adjust the timing of them, or should he still be adjusting down to 2-nap schedule? What else might be causing it? Night sleep remains good from about 7 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. Okay, great. So my answer would be yes, we need to adjust the timing. Our kids aren't robots, so if you have a one-off short nap here or there, that's normal. But if you're saying the vast majority of the time for both of these naps, he might only nap 45 minutes, I'm inclined to think they both might be at the wrong time. So my goal for him would be for both of these naps to be an hour to 2, maybe more realistically, if he's not been inclined to be an amazing napper, the goal would be for the first nap to be an hour to an hour and a half, and the second nap to be an hour to 2, ideally an hour and a half to 2. So I would start with that the ideal start window for most kids is somewhere between 9 and 10 a.m. for that first nap. So I would start testing out different timings. So like what happens at 9:15 if you're like still got a 45-minute nap? What happens if we do it at 9:30? What happens if we put them down at 9:45? What happens if we put them down at 10? But I would start in that like 9 to 9:30 window testing out, 10 to 15-minute increments. If you put them down at 9:20 and you're like, boom, there it was, hour and a half, stop. We're there, 9:20. We're going to rinse and repeat 9:20. For nap 2, I would test that same thing, but test out between 1 and 2 p.m. Test it out until we find a start time where you're like, boom, we got an hour and a half to 2-hour nap, and then hold there. And then even if you have the random off nap here or there, you just stick to our nap start time windows. So I would shift his naps until you find his new rhythm. Now that he's matured to being on a 2-nap schedule, the rhythm is going to shift a little bit. It's going to be different than what his 3-nap rhythm was. Sometimes it doesn't shift a ton, but definitely sounds like his needs some shifting. Okay. Those were all the pre-submitted questions. So let me look into the live questions. I'm going to close this out. Let me scroll back up. Mama Rickerton, RN. Oh, hi. You said, here to say, at Sleep and Wellness Coach is a lifeline every parent needs. You are so sweet. Signed, a well-rested mom and Sleep and Wellness Coach member since birth, going on 4.5 years. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. You're so sweet. Okay. ER Stout. Thoughts on big brother wanting to share room with little brother. Both boys are sleeping great. They are 7 and 3. Seems like a bad idea, but in sweet phase, I'd like to encourage. Okay, this is a great question. I always joke with parents that I can make a lot of things happen with children's sleep. I can fix a lot of problems and I can make a lot of things happen. But one thing I cannot make happen easily, I mean, we work on it, is perfectly make kids be room sharers. So if a child has impulse, two struggles with room sharing with kids. If you have children who have different natural wake times, it can be a pain point if they also struggle with the impulse control a little bit. So let's say, for example, your 7-year-old wakes at 6:30, but your 3-year-old wakes at 6. So your 3-year-old, and it's probably going to be a bigger issue in your example if your 3-year-old wakes earlier because your 7-year-old has more impulse control. But if your 3-year-old wakes at 6 and your 7-year-old wakes at 6:30, you have to ask yourself, your 3-year-old, I don't, do they have the ability to resist the urge to wake their brother? Because if they don't, then we start to have issues with the room sharing where little brother wakes big brother and then big brother becomes 30 minutes short on sleep. And then he starts to get overtired and we kind of have a whole issue there. So I work with a lot of people where they have to room share. So I work with a lot of people in New York City and San Francisco, and they only have one bedroom and kids have to room share. My tip always for anyone listening who wants their kids to room share is if you have the ability to divide them somehow, you want to have 2 good sleepers. You want them both to have good independent sleep habits before you bring them together. You've already done that, which is great. If their wake times are noticeably different, you need to really ask yourself how much impulse control the earlier riser has, and can they resist the urge to wake their brother. If you think they do, then you can say, I love that you guys want to share a room, and we would love to give it a go. The rule of sharing a room is you do not wake up your brother. If you wake up and let's say with your 3-year-old, if you wake up and the light is green and your brother's still sleeping, you can leave the room, but don't wake your brother on the way out. You want to set up the boundaries. And then I would go about it with saying, we're going to test this out and see how you do. If you guys do a great job, great. And you like it, we can keep sharing a room. But if it seems like you're having a hard time, that just means it's not an ideal setup for you. And we're going to go back to having separate rooms because sleep is really important. You are both fantastic sleepers and we need to maintain that. So set up a structure. If they wake up around the same time already naturally, then your chance of success is way higher. But don't do it on a whim. Be very clear of what the expectations are of sharing a room. My kids have been great sleepers for a bazillion years. Room sharing, not good. They have to room share when we travel. But my older one, actually, not now, because she's older and in puberty and she sleeps in later. But prior, so if we rewind to when they were younger, under 10, my older one was my earlier riser, and she's my more impulsive child. So I can make a lot of things happen. And they would listen and stay in their room, but she could not resist waking her sister up. So that was something we just took on when we traveled. We knew that she would wake her sister up, but I was always so grateful that I didn't have to have them share rooms because of that. But I certainly work with tons of kids that share rooms beautifully when there's good expectations and they're not impulsive or their wake times are close to each other. It can work out really well. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Okay, I think those were all of the questions. I think I got to all the pre-submitted questions, and then I don't think we have any other live questions. You said you're the best. Thanks so much. Oh my gosh, you're welcome. So glad that was helpful. Okay, so I think those were all the questions. I will look and tell you guys when the March sleep Q&A is going to be happening a little bit later because we have sleep week. We have a lot of other free things happening in March, but it's going to be on Friday, March 27th is when the next one will be. So you can mark your calendar. There will be a post that goes up the day before inviting you to submit a question in advance. And of course, you can always join me live and ask your questions live as well. So keep an eye out for announcements around Sleep Awareness Week happening March 8th and all the free classes that are being offered that week. And then I will see you guys back here live in March. Okay, bye for now.